The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 133. The Devin Denard package was double trouble for Iowa's Saturday in the home finale. Next stop, the Horseshoe, Columbus, Ohio, and the game. Today we preview Michigan, Ohio State.
Oh man, Euchre's been broadcasting for 27 years. I have never seen anything like this. They need 2 inches. Dennis Franklin, the quarterback, taking a long con from center. He hands off to Shuttlesworth 5, and it's down to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Dennis Franklin! Oh my God, Dennis Franklin fooled everybody. He fooled me. He fooled the entire Ohio State team. Kneeling is Larry Gustafson. Attempting will be Super Toe. Super Toe will kick the 30-yard field goal. It's kicked to send over there. It's a tied-up ball game. 10-10. Okay. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Carter hands up. Carter's down. Oh my God! Carter scored! Look at those Wolverines! 95 Wolverines going in the end zone. Carter got the pass. In the air, it's done. Buford is going out of his mind. I have never seen anything like this in all my 40 years of covering Michigan football.
This is the Michigan Man Podcast. On GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome back. I'm your host Mike Fitzpatrick. Led by Devin and Denard, the Wolverines took care of business on Saturday with a 42-17 pasting of the visiting Hawkeyes. We all know who's next. In just a few minutes, we're going to chat with Ohio State beat writer Tim May from the Columbus Dispatch and hear what this week's contest means to the Buckeyes and their fans. Then on Michigan Game Day, we'll hear from the angel of the big house, Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Before we get to that, just a quick show reminder. Just because football season ends this week doesn't mean that we're going away. Next week, we'll be back with a recap of the Ohio State game. Then in December, there is basketball and hockey to catch up with. And of course, our bowl preview shows at the end of the month. In January, we'll have our football review show, close it out for the season. And then it's time to keep focused on basketball and hockey. In February, we'll have our 2 big recruiting shows, which are among our most listened to programs each year. Also in February, softball and baseball will swing into action, and we know it's always nice to talk baseball in the middle of winter. So even though football comes to a close with the bowl game, that doesn't mean we slow down. We have the 4th-ranked men's basketball team in the country right now. The women's team under the direction of Coach Barnes-Arico is also ready for a big winter, and Coach Red Berenson and the boys will give us plenty to talk about as they make another run at the CCHA Championship and another record-setting appearance in the NCAA tournament. So don't forget, tune in or download the Michigan Man Podcast each week and tell your friends about the show. We air every Wednesday from August through April and then twice a month from May to July. We'll be here every Wednesday with the best in Michigan coverage. I hope you'll be here too. On my view from Section 17 this week, the Devin and Denard show took us all by surprise on Saturday, especially the Iowa defense, which had no clue what to do against a multifaceted Michigan attack. It bodes well, I think, for this Saturday in Columbus. Having both of these weapons on the field at the same time is something we've thought about the last 2 seasons, but other than limited use in the Deuce package last year, we've never had much of a chance to see what could be when both Denard and Devin were out there for an extended period of time. It will most certainly keep the Ohio State defensive staff up late this week, designing a defense to slow down this revamped and re-energized offense. Our thoughts and prayers go out to junior running back Fitz, who suffered a broken leg and a gruesome injury early in last Saturday's game. He underwent surgery shortly thereafter, and he is recovering at the University of Michigan Medical Center. Actually, he was released yesterday, so let's hope he can heal well and be back in uniform next fall for his senior season. My final thoughts today are on the student section. Last week, Angelique Chengelis wrote a column that asked, where are the students? For the last few years, we've noticed that a large number of students are trickling into games or just not showing up at all. It seems to have become more pronounced this year. When the ceremony honoring this year's senior class got underway at 11:30 a.m. Saturday, the student section was virtually empty. This was despite video appeals to students last week from Devin Gardner and Thomas Gordon. Something is not right. Dave Brandon told Angelique that the athletic department will be looking for answers in the off-season and exploring options. So come on, gang. You missed the opportunity to bid a respectful and well-deserved farewell to your 23 departing seniors this past weekend. Things will have to change soon, or your athletic director will be making some tough and maybe unpopular decisions regarding how student tickets are utilized and possibly how many are available in the future. Hopefully we'll see a turnaround next season. The athletes deserve your full support. Tim May has been on the job as Ohio State's beat writer with the Columbus Dispatch for almost 30 years. If you want to know anything about the Buckeyes, you just talk to Tim. He's a straight shooter, and I think you'll enjoy my interview with him. Tim is set to join us next here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW. Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. Joining us on our visitor segment today is Ohio State beat writer Tim May from the Columbus Dispatch. Tim, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here, my man.
And you've covered the Bucs, Tim, as the beat writer since 1984, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so you've been around a long time, I think, with the Dispatch since '76, so you have seen a lot. So let's start right off and talk about that overtime thriller Saturday night in Madison, Tim. 21-14, the Bucs come away with the victory. And once again, they found a way to win a close one on the road, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. And, I think it was frustrating for Ohio State fans looking at it, just when you thought Ohio State's offense was kind of like, it kind of found itself. They ran into maybe the best defense in the Big Ten when you really analyze things. Maybe them or Michigan State. I don't mean to use that word in blasphemy on your show here, but they got befuddled there through most of the game, but then suddenly, when they needed offense in overtime, they were able to muster a four-play drive that in essence won the game because the defense went back out and stymied Wisconsin just when Wisconsin thought it had it going on. So those are the kind of things that happen in a special season, and I know this isn't going to be the special season of Ohio State fans' dreams, but first year in the Urban Meyer era, and sitting here on the brink of a 12-0 perfect season, if he can get by the hated team from up north. But we'll see what happens.
Well, Tim, when this season got underway, do you think even the most optimistic Buckeye followers thought they could be Leaders Division champions and 11-0 heading into the Michigan game?
I'm not sure. I mean, I picked Ohio State to go 7-1 in the Big Ten this year, and I thought that one loss would be at Michigan State when they were still trying to kind of come to grips with their new offense. And so after that game, I had Ohio State pegged to win out. I think everyone's seen this has been a little bit of an adjustment year for Michigan for all kinds of reasons, one of which is injuries to vital personnel, and now the latest to Toussaint. That was just gruesome. And, of course, Michigan has had Denard Robinson, you can love him or hate him, but Denard Robinson is a supreme talent as far as like college football goes, in my opinion, and him suffering the elbow injury, which has curtailed his ability to throw the ball, it does appear. We'll see what happens in this one, but that stunted them a little bit. Then again, they bounced back. Devin Gardner found a passing game. So I guess what I'm saying is, you never know what's going to happen from game to game anymore in college football. Just look around the country. But I thought Ohio State had a good chance of running the table after the Michigan State game in what is undoubtedly a down year for the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that. Tim, when Coach Meyer brought his version of the spread to Columbus, I think a lot of us that have seen him through the years, at BG, Utah, Florida, expected a lot more razzle-dazzle in that offense. Right now, it's the spread, but this is a power running team first and foremost, isn't it?
Yeah, and that was what was befuddling, though. And that's 2 times I've used that word now in the last 5 minutes. You're drawing it out of me, but just when you thought they kind of had that part of their game going, they somehow abandoned it at times on Saturday at Wisconsin. And by that I mean handing the ball to Carlos Hyde, who Carlos Hyde had a pretty good game for the amount of carries he had. And but yeah, I mean, Urban Meyer said all along, though, if you really look at what his spread offense is all about, it's about establishing a power running game between the tackles. It's not about, as you pointed out, I mean, there's some razzle-dazzle, but it's razzle-dazzle running the ball more than it is throwing it. And, one of his prime objectives when he took the job back in late November a year ago was reminding people that, you got to run the football, and you got to run the football in the Big Ten, and he wants the power running game to be the nut of the offense, and everything else goes from there. What they're really missing, Mike, they're missing that third guy, the third guy being that little call him a hybrid back, the Percy Harvin type is what we keep referring to him as, who can scare a defense with his speed, but is willing to cut up inside if he has to on inside plays. They're missing that third guy to really make this offense go. And there have been times, I mean, in Wisconsin did it, Purdue did it. They just kind of soft played the front, with their front six, front seven, and sort of kept Braxton Miller in check. Both those teams did, and I would expect Greg Madison, who, as you well know, once worked for Urban Meyer when he won the national championship at Florida. I expect Michigan to have used those blueprints to get ready for this one because I'm talking about defensively. Why wouldn't you? I mean, that's clearly has there's that word again. It's clearly has bothered Braxton Miller and the Ohio State offense, just that little soft play action.
Well, Tim, you've seen a lot of good ones under center in your years covering the Bucs, no doubt about that. But talk about Braxton Miller and how good he is and could be in the next 2 years.
Yeah, this is the most interesting part of this year is you're seeing Braxton Miller operate with not a full complement of weapons around him, but if they ever truly establish big-time receiver or receivers, if they can get that done next year, it could just really open things up because, you watch video of him. I know even Michigan fans out of the corner of their eye have caught video of him. I mean, he's one of the great runners in college football. And then on top of that, he can actually throw the ball very well. He's had some scatter arm games. He's actually had some scatter arm halves where he comes back in the second half and throws the ball extremely well. He hasn't had what I'd call a complete game yet, and and you just think back to last year. I mean, the game at Michigan. I mean, that was a pretty good duel, Denard Robinson and Braxton Miller. And if Braxton Miller had one or two more weapons around him, that would have been a very, very interesting game. Might have been part of the lore, but that was still a pretty good duel in the sun. And it's just too bad it wasn't. I don't know. You just get the sense it won't be rejoined this year. There's a different tenor about this game.
On that offense, though, Tim, other than Braxton, the offense features Carlos Hyde, the guy with all the physical tools you want in a feature back. Two talented wideouts in Corey Brown and Devin Smith, tight end Jake Stoneburner. So as usual, there's really no shortage of talent there, and we just noted that this is a power running team first and foremost. Do you see the passing game, though, as being the weak link in this offense's armor?
Yes, I mean, it's Urban Meyer is the head coach, and he is continually harped on the fact that his wide receivers don't make plays. And there were times in the Wisconsin game a week ago when they seemed to almost disappear on some passing plays. Now, that may be scheme. It's hard for coaches to admit schemes are bad, but he's very disappointed. Let's just put it that way. As he told me a week ago, he would grade the wide receiver play a C. at this point in the year, but with the ability in the last 2 games to change his mind. Well, I would say they're down to C- right now based on the way things went at Wisconsin. But, you never know. I mean, Corey Philly Brown gets wide open last year at Michigan for that, that first big shot to kind of put that game in motion. So you never know what's going to happen from game to game, week to week. It's all about matchups and whether or not a defense has the personnel in the scheme to take away certain guys. But the guy who really sort of has disappeared in conference play, with a few exceptions, is Devin Smith. And they would really like to see him get on the beam here in what is Ohio State's last game of this season. Kind of leave maybe make him feel better about himself and make the Ohio State offense feel better about itself to get a couple of those wide receivers going. The big experiment was moving Jake Stoneburner from tight end out into a slot receiver, sometimes even wide out. That hasn't paid the dividends they thought it would. He was a former high school wide receiver, and there have been times where he's just sort of disappeared in the passing game. He's still a tremendous downfield blocker, though, in the running game, and that's what people have to keep in mind about this offense. They want their receivers to block as well as they catch the ball. Right now, I think they block better than they catch it.
I mean, what's the issue with the receivers? Is it more on the receivers, or is it more on Braxton Miller, or maybe even a combination of both?
Oh, I don't know. I think Braxton's a pretty competent guy. They like the way he's developed, but you can't throw it to somebody who's not open. And there have been times when he's been reluctant to pull the trigger. And you got to remember, this is a guy who's one of the great scramblers in college football. So, if it doesn't look quite right, he feels like he can still get something with his feet. Last week at Wisconsin, that was not the case. And when he decided to pull it down, it was too late. And Wisconsin always seemed to have a man there, in his little scramble or cutback, or just harassed him pretty well. So, it's always a combo when that kind of stuff is going on. And there have been a few times when protection hasn't been what it should be. You and I can make observations, but when the head coach steps up and says it's on the wide receivers, you got to think it's on the wide receivers.
Our guest on the show today is Ohio State beat writer Tim May from the Columbus Dispatch. Tim, let's talk about the Ohio State defense for just a couple of minutes if we could. A lot of observers say this is not a vintage Ohio State defense, not what we've seen over the last decade. But injuries, of course, have impacted the front seven and the linebacking core, and depth has been an issue. So there's been a lot of shuffling on that side of the ball. Despite those issues, who has stood out to you on this year's defense? And talk about some of the positives and the negatives with this defense.
Ryan Shazier, number 10, he stands out to anybody. He's like a rocket or a missile that just shows up out of nowhere sometimes and makes plays. He's made a few mistakes along the way too. He's played despite getting banged up in games. He's always returned, and I think Michigan fans remember him hobbling off with that knee injury last year in the Michigan game, but getting back out there and literally playing on one leg. And it's hard to chase Denard Robinson when you've only got one leg. Denard Robinson can do a lot more with one arm than a lot of defenders can do with one leg, clearly. But he showed his toughness and his guts, I guess is what you want to call it. He's gotten a lot bigger than he was. Pretty good, a little bit bigger than he was a year ago, and he sort of sets the tone for that defense. But the biggest experiment, one of the great experiments in college football this year, one of the great switches was Zach Boren was Ohio State's starting fullback for the past 3 years and the first half of this year. But when injuries and a lack of development by some young guys forced their hand, Urban Meyer moved Zach Boren, who had been a really good linebacker in high school, moved him to linebacker, and he helped shore up that defense. And I know that name is familiar to Michigan fans because his dad was a starting linebacker for Bo Schembechler back in the early 80s, Mike Boren. And, of course, he's famous. His brother, Justin, was at Michigan for 2 years back in the late 2000s or mid-2000s. And when the coaching change happened, he transferred. He did the famous transfer. It's infamous, I think, in Michigan, but it's famous in Ohio State. He transferred to Ohio State, and the rest is history. So, he's really made a difference in that defense. And getting Etienne Sabino back after he broke a bone in his lower right leg, a non-weight-bearing bone, he missed 4 games, 5 weeks, and he's back. He was back playing last week in Wisconsin. I guess what I'm getting to is that the linebacker core, for the most part, played pretty well against Wisconsin, even though they gave up 191 yards of Monty Ball, it was one of the more ineffectual 191-yard games you'll ever see. And the reason for that is they had great play by the defensive line led by John Simon, who tied a school record with 4 sacks last week against Wisconsin. And then, of course, Michigan native son Jonathan Big Hank Hankins, the defensive tackle. A lot of people think he'll be the first player drafted from the Big Ten in the 2013 NFL draft if he decides to leave. He's been playing extremely well this year, kind of anchoring things in the defense. And then the secondary has been hot and cold, but when it's been hot, it's been really good, led by Bradley Roby, number 1 cornerback, who also might be contemplating leaving for the NFL. He's had a very good year, as has Travis Howard's kind of come on now at the other corner. So they feel like the defense may be about as healthy as it's been going into this Michigan game, and about as whole as it's been. In the last several games, it's played, since the Indiana game, it's played pretty damn well.
Well, what's up with the secondary? I mean, I look at that secondary with Roby and the talent that Ohio State has back there, and then a statistic that sort of makes you scratch your head is 97th against the pass. Does that speak more to the injuries up front through the course of the year?
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to a lot of things. I mean, there was a time last week when Travis Howard was not on the field, and neither was starting safety C.J. Barnett. They both hobbled off. Howard had a stinger in his neck, and C.J. Barnett kind of re-aggravated the high ankle sprain, which has bugged him all year. And they were playing with backups against Wisconsin. They still did a credible job. You know, passing stats from the standpoint of total yards, yeah, they're 97th, but you know, pass efficiency, they're a lot better than that. Pass efficiency defense, and that's really what matters. I mean, you know, most teams these days, you know, against really good defenses, you've got to throw the ball, and just because you give up a lot of yards doesn't mean you're necessarily a bad defense. I mean, this is not one of Ohio State's great defenses. This will not go down in the lore of Ohio State. Well, unless they just stuff Michigan, then of course you'll always go down in Ohio State lore. But this is a defense that's played with a lot of problems from an injury standpoint, and really from a scheme standpoint. They kind of changed their scheme a few games ago and just became more aggressive and just said, you know what, you're going to get beat. You're going to get beat going 100 miles an hour. That's been the big difference in the defense over the last several weeks, and they've really embraced that approach.
Well, this week, speaking of that defense, more than likely the Bucks will be facing somewhat of a new-look Michigan offense.
Yeah.
With Gardner under center, Denard at running back and receiver. You know, until Denard got hurt, defenses that had success against Michigan were able to neutralize him, take him out of the game, and it made Michigan's offense very one-dimensional. Now, the new look gives Michigan a lot more options, which we saw Saturday. I don't know if you've seen any tape on it yet. But for Ohio State, it's also a lot more to game plan against, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it is, in a nutshell. And it is. I mean, you know, with Denard Robinson, you don't have what you'd call a true running back, but holy moly, I mean, the guy's one of the great runners in college football. So, yeah, you got to deal with that, and it's mainly of dealing with the unknown, I mean, I think for Ohio State. Let's face it, I mean, Denard Robinson's had a tremendous career, in my opinion, but the switch to Devin Gardner that had to take place in that Minnesota game was I thought it put lifeblood into the Michigan offense, because the guy can throw the ball a hell of a lot better than Denard Robinson. By that I mean, you know, throw it to the target he's aiming at, and it's changed their offense, in my opinion, made it much more potent. And we all know, I mean, Devin Gardner was one of the more recruited quarterbacks in the country several years ago. I mean, even Ohio State was trying to get in on it. So my point is, there's a talent there that you kind of wonder. I mean, they had him at wide receiver at the beginning of the year, as you well know, and now it's flipped. You know, it's kind of an interesting scenario when you think about it, but it's something you have to do in modern college football, and it's utilizing your talents. And I really think that's revitalized. I don't know if you agree. I think that's revitalized the Michigan offense. I think they look more like a real offense with him out there and at quarterback at times. And you know, I just keep thinking back to that Alabama game. I mean, I was one of those who predicted Michigan would give Alabama a game. I didn't think Michigan would necessarily beat Alabama, but I thought they'd give them a game because I thought they would present problems. And Fitzgerald Toussaint couldn't play, and I'm one of the few. I mean, Michigan attacked Alabama the way you have to attack Alabama. You have to throw the football to beat Alabama, as Texas A&M proved. At least they went in with the right idea, but they didn't have either the quarterback or the receivers to pull it off. Now they've kind of evolved, and it's going to be a very interesting conundrum for the Ohio State defense.
Well, Tim, the game always has a lot riding on it. We all know that, and this year is no different. Talk about how important this Saturday's game is to Ohio State, especially given the fact that the Buckeyes could be 12-0 on the year, leaders division champions, but the season ends on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, as I equated last week, the Wisconsin game was all about putting the icing on the cake because they were 11-0. They clinched the outright leaders division title, the only thing they can play for this year. You got to give them credit for that. I mean, this is a team that has been through a lot of adversity in the last 18 months, and with a new head coach and new staff, they got it done. I mean, they won the one thing they could win this year, which will stick in Brett Bielema's craw. It does appear for quite a while. He's the head coach, of course, at Wisconsin. For those who aren't paying attention, but then past that, I mean, now this is the cherry on top. This is the game. This is the Super Bowl for Ohio State this season. I mean, it's almost like an 11-0 year, and now they're going to their bowl game, which is the game, the Michigan game, the greatest rivalry in college football. And by the way, I grew up going to Auburn, Alabama games back in the 60s, so, I have a feel for a great game. I mean, this rivalry takes a backseat to no rivalry in sport. But I digress. Here you are, and you're sitting here, and here's a team, and by that I mean Michigan, that still has a chance to win the Legends Division and go to the Big Ten Championship game if Nebraska could get beat on Saturday, and you have a chance to take away that shot if you're Ohio State football player. So, there's still a lot of things out there, and like you just said, I mean, this team, Braxton Miller, the quarterback who was once highly thought of in the Heisman Trophy race this year, who's now fallen way below probably the top 5 in most people's minds, especially after last week. This is your forget-me-not bouquet time. Don't forget about the Buckeyes. They've risen to number 4 in the Associated Press poll, the only poll they're being included in this year, with a win and maybe some more dominoes falling. Who knows how high they could go? And because at least one team ahead of them is going to lose again, Georgia or Alabama. So I guess what I'm saying here is this is the forget-me-not game for Ohio State, and they're taking it extremely seriously. And then on top of that, you've got a brand-new head coach, Urban Meyer, who, like Brady Hoke, is a native son of Ohio, who gets it. He's been pointing to this game for a long time. You can see in his eyes what this game means to him. He grew up as a kid, in Ashtabula, immersed in the lore of the game, listening to it on the radio with his mom when he was at a store. I mean, all these little memories come back, from the 70s. He's not as old as me. He's like 47 years old, but he has those memories of those great 1970s Ohio State teams, which, for a 4-year span, they never lost to Michigan. Then it was 7 years in the 2000s for the young kids growing up today. So you got this head coach who really gets it. You got the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines who definitely gets it. I mean, I really think we're on the brink of a new era, a new golden era in the game, and it all starts with Brady Hoke versus Urban Meyer.
You got it, and I think fans on both sides would like to see that golden era return, or another golden era.
And let me tell you a funny story. I'm going over to cover an Ohio State kid who committed to Ohio State last February, a kid named Cam Burrows, who's a defensive back from Trotwood Madison High School. And the road you get off on to go down to Trotwood Madison is Hoke Road. And, of course, Brady Hoke's already secured a commitment from Mike McCray Jr. or Mike McCray II over there from the same high school, whose father played linebacker at Ohio State in the 1980s. Yeah, this battle has been joined.
Well, Tim, last question for you. Is there any scenario in which you can envision Michigan coming into the Horseshoe and winning Saturday? Or is Ohio State, and you've seen them all year, in your opinion, right now just a better team with more talent?
I think this game is very interesting because I don't think either team has a great defense, and I think both teams do things offensively which worry the other team, if you see what I'm saying. So I think this has the makings, has the chance to be another shootout. maybe not on the realm of the game of the century in 2006, which was a tremendous football game, elevating Troy Smith to the Heisman Trophy for Ohio State. But I think this game has a chance to be a shootout in its own right, and that's what I'm looking forward to watching is, who blinks, who makes the mistakes, which costs their team the game. It really could come down to that. And so, like I said, it's Braxton Miller's last shot to put some numbers up that people are going to remember. Not that he goes in with that intent, but that's what their offense is about. Let's face it. And then, of course, Devin Gardner, Denard Robinson, can that little magic act get it done? I mean, that's I'm looking forward to this one big time.
Well, as always, it will be fascinating. It's the game. That's all we have to say, and we're just days away from that. It's going to be fun. Our guest on the show today has been Ohio State beat writer Tim May from the Columbus Dispatch. Tim, thank you for your time, and enjoy Saturday.
I definitely will, man. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks again to Tim May, Ohio State beat writer from the Columbus Dispatch, for joining us on the visitor segment today. Coming up next on Michigan Game Day, we'll be joined by the angel of the Big House, Angelique Chengelis, Michigan beat writer from the Detroit News, here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine.
Joining us on our Michigan Game Day segment today, Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Welcome back, Angelique.
Thank you. I appreciate being back, and you know how much I love the game week, so this is always fun to discuss with you.
Oh, and we're glad to have you because, as we have said so many times in the past few years, this is our favorite week of the year, not because Thanksgiving is coming up, but now that the game happens to fall on Thanksgiving weekend, it just makes things all the more festive.
It really does. I have to confess that I have sort of grown to, if you think about it, we would have watched the Michigan-Ohio State game last Saturday in the old schedule, and I kind of missed that a little bit. I think it's hard to focus with the holiday coming up and that break, but I think I was talking to someone from the Big Ten the other day that, that would be ideal. They really don't like having the 2-week gap like they used to have while everybody else was still playing in their conference games and their regular season games. So this keeps, Michigan, I was going to say, it's not just Michigan, it's the Big Ten. It keeps the Big Ten relevant in terms of college football and the games still being played on the Saturdays, competing against everybody else who's still on television.
Well, I think you're right. For those of us who've been around a while, have a few miles on us, we're still not quite used to the new Big Ten with the divisions, the final game falling on Thanksgiving weekend, and of course, on December 1st, the Big Ten championship game. But it is fascinating. It
is, and now with the talk of adding 2 more teams to the Big Ten, I think that's going to really, will the divisions be realigned? Where do you add, if it happens that Rutgers and Maryland join the Big Ten, where do they go? Do you shift somebody out of the leaders to the legends? Do you change the division names? I think there's still a lot of unknowns left in the Big Ten, and it's going to be an interesting couple weeks to see how this sorts through. I mean, we'll know sooner than later, obviously, but how this is all going to shake out and how it'll affect Michigan in their division and, how this affects the big picture college football. So there's going to be a lot going on in the Big Ten, but I know that the focus now is Michigan-Ohio State.
It certainly is. And just before, Angelique, we get to talking about the game, if we could, I just wanted to back up and talk about the last weekend. Of course, Iowa, the home finale, the last game for our 23 seniors. The Devin and Denard show was really double trouble and fascinating to watch Saturday, wasn't it?
It was really fun, and I think a lot of people are wondering, wow, what is this? What it would have been like the last couple of years? And I don't know. I mean, I think what's happened. I think Devin Gardner has really matured in this past season, moving to receiver, and also being tight like he is with Denard Robinson, who I think is really one of the most unique people I've met covering Michigan football. Just truly a nice person, and he's a shy guy and has really taken on the program on his shoulders the last couple of years and done it with such grace. And I think that's been really good for Devin Gardner to watch that and to mature, but also I think playing receiver really has helped his game overall. And we saw his athleticism on the field as a receiver, and we've certainly seen it the last 3 weeks as he's led the team at quarterback. And I thought what we saw Saturday was just dynamic. And I was sort of surprised to see Denard. I mean, that injury is a tough one, and I think there were times when he came off the field that he was grimacing a little bit. I think that there's some lingering issues with his right arm, but to me, that proves how tough that kid is. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how they're going to take this Devin Denard show and how they're going to embellish it even more in Columbus.
No, absolutely. I think we're all waiting to see that. Did you notice, though, Angelique, when Denard was running, that whether it was to the right or to the left, Denard was holding the ball with his left hand. He was not switching hands as you would expect. He clamped on with that left hand the entire game.
He absolutely did, and I thought that was smart of him. And I asked him about this after the game, and he shrugged it off. But I saw a highlight of it today, but I was watching very closely. He was tackled, and he got up and he patted the Iowa player on the helmet with his right hand, and right away he sort of grabbed at his wrist and then came off the field, and he was grimacing a bit and holding the arm down like he had, just dangling, like he had after he was hit in the Illinois game, as I recall. And I think that's a little concerning, but I think with this injury, whatever it is specifically, I mean, we were told it's an ulnar nerve injury, whether it's a bruise or what, we haven't gotten any details. But the doctors I've spoken to about that said it takes weeks and sometimes even longer to heal something like that. So I don't think he's 100% with the right arm, and I think there's a reason, he was limited in warm-ups again, throwing the ball. And, I think this is something, and that's why I go back to his toughness. I think he was just determined to play in his last home game. He was going to do whatever it took, and he's not really letting on that things might be aching him or if there's some discomfort. And I don't think he put himself on the field if he thought he'd be jeopardizing anything. So I think he's healthy enough to do what he was doing, holding the ball in the left hand, but I thought that was very wise of him never to shift and to put that right arm in jeopardy.
Clearly he was in some discomfort. We could all see that, but it was a good test because he took some shots yesterday.
He did. I mean, that one specifically I was talking about, I thought he got kind of I really wondered, I'm like, whoa, is he going to come up slow from this one? And he just bounced up. But, yeah, I mean, he had some discomfort, and I think that he'll probably get a lot of treatment, obviously, these next few days. And, you don't get the sense he was practicing much those 2 weeks when he was out. And Brady Hoke said that he was cleared on last Sunday to play in this Iowa game. So I do think, when Brady's saying day-to-day, we're all laughing about it, but I think he is sincerely day-to-day. And but I just don't think the fact that he got on the field against Iowa makes me think that there's just absolutely no doubt that he'll be available for Ohio State. In what capacity? I think we'll see exactly what we saw Saturday. I don't think we're going to see him slinging the ball much, and I think that Devin Gardner certainly has proven that he's more than capable of doing that.
Well, we have to feel good at how he played on Saturday, especially given the fact that Fitz Toussaint went down with that gruesome injury in the first quarter.
That was tough to watch, and I have not enjoyed seeing the replays. I keep averting my eyes, and really haven't heard any updates other than he was in surgery and they were waiting for his mother to get into town before they disclosed anything further about the injury, but clearly was in a lot of pain. Devin and Denard were around him afterwards and saying that this kid's a tough guy, and to see him in that kind of pain, they knew how much he was hurting. And this is, I thought he was starting to play really more Fitz Toussaint-like these last couple games, running harder, getting them some key yards, and I think that's really, certainly it's unfortunate, but it doesn't set back their running game, but it's a blow, and I think we're going to definitely have to see more of Thomas Rawls now and see how he steps up, and I thought he played very well on Saturday, and I think that's, if that's going to happen at this time of year, they've got to be thankful that Denard is well enough to run and to be in there as a tailback. So they'll have Denard in there, and I think maybe you get Justice Hayes in there, and certainly Vincent Smith is available. So it's a blow, but I think they'll be able to overcome it with those players behind him.
Last week you wrote an article about the student no-shows and the late arrivals at the game so far this year, really over, I think we've noticed it over the last few years.
Yes.
It was really disappointing for the seniors, I thought, when the ceremony honoring them started at 11:30 on Saturday, and it got underway with the student section virtually empty. Did you notice that?
Yes, I did. I took a picture of it. It was, just disappointing. And, people have a lot of reasons why this might be happening. And as Dave Brandon said, and same thing at Michigan State when Tom Izzo got upset about the student no-shows at Michigan State games earlier this year, Iowa in particular. These tickets are paid for. It's not like they're waiting to sell the tickets to the students. They're 22,000 seats that have been accounted for in terms of payment. But why can't you show up? It's 11:30. Maybe they're out too late, right? That's the definite concern. Some people say maybe they're studying. I doubt that. So, but yeah, they really Michigan made an effort to appeal to the student athletes. From the student athletes to their fellow students to come out early. They had video messages from Devin Gardner and Thomas Gordon, and I thought, well, maybe that'll shake things up a little bit, and it clearly didn't, and that was disappointing because while the stadium was fairly full for the senior ceremony, it just didn't feel like it wasn't the send off that I was hoping to see them receive because they've played their hearts out for 4 or 5 years. Not have their peers there in force, I thought was disappointing.
Yeah, very disappointing. And I know in the article, Dave Brandon's very concerned, and he's been talking, as you mentioned, to, a lot of other athletic directors. Everything's changing in this day and age with things. So hopefully the athletic department is innovative and can find a way to get these kids in the seats. Because you're right, on Saturday, on senior day, that was the most disappointing part. These kids have given 4 and 5 years to this university, and, your students, your peers, they weren't there.
It's hard to get the real explanation for it. I think the one thing that Brandon mentioned is going to a barcode on the ticket to identify who's attending, who isn't, and then they can make a determination whether they need to shrink the student section a bit. There are other things. I think Nebraska has 2 separate student sections, so if there are no shows, you don't notice it as much. There isn't as big of a crater. I think that kind of sized absence in the middle of a student section. So there are options that they're definitely going to look at, but, for me, I went to school that when I was in school, the football program wasn't very good and nobody went, so, I would have loved to have had something like this to be able to go to on what is it, 7 Saturdays a year. It's not like, you're expected to go every Saturday, so to me it would be a real treat, and to see people take it for granted is disappointing.
Our favorite week is here, so let's dwell on Ohio State, Michigan, and the game for a couple of minutes. With the Buckeyes 11-0, Angelique, Urban Meyer, Brady Hoke squaring off for the first time as head coaches at Ohio State and Michigan, and with this suddenly revamped Michigan offense, this Saturday's game is not short on intrigue, is it?
Oh, I think it's going to be a fantastic game. I really have had this feeling for a couple of weeks now that it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be like 2006 where there's a lot of points scored and maybe you don't see as much defense. I just think it's going to be, I really think it's going to be a tight game, moderate amount of scoring. I think it's going to be, I think that both offenses are capable of being explosive. I think watching the Ohio State-Wisconsin game, the first half Ohio State's offense was really looking like it was clicking, and then the second half not so much. And you kind of wondered, well, what team is this exactly? But I think Urban and Brady certainly understand the rivalry like you'd want your Michigan and Ohio State coaches to understand it. I think playing in Columbus, playing for an unbeaten season, and obviously players have said, I went down to Ohio State spring game in April, and they were saying it then. This is the Michigan-Ohio State game to them is their bowl game because of NCAA sanctions. They're not going to the postseason. And they've technically, they've won the Leaders Division. They would be playing in Indianapolis, and they don't get to do any of that. So I think for Ohio State, the motivation is great. And for Michigan, the motivation is great for obvious reasons that we talk about year after year, but also to stay alive. If Nebraska somehow stumbles against Iowa, which is unlikely on Friday, that game could mean everything to Michigan on the next day to go to Indianapolis.
This Ohio State defense, it's, not in any way a vintage Ohio State defense. They're really strong up front. Their secondary's been having problems. Even though they're talented back there, they're 97th against the pass going into Saturday's game. So, when I looked at this game, as far as scouting it, you think, our chances are good. I thought our chances were good before this past Saturday. But now with the new revamped offense, and call it what you want, the Devin and Denard package, I think our chances are even better to go into Columbus and come out with a win Saturday.
Oh, I think the chances definitely improved, and I do think from watching last Saturday's game against Iowa, and even I do think Devin has really settled in now. In the last game and a half, I think he just looks like he's meant to play the position, and he always said he was a quarterback while he was playing receiver, and now I very much believe that he was right about that, and I do think that somehow the receivers look like they're even playing better. I don't know if Devin's throwing a different kind of ball, and you're seeing Roundtree and Gallen make spectacular catches, and they are clicking at the right time, and Borges called, I thought, a really nice game plan on Saturday, and I think we're seeing more of the kind of offense that Al Borges will call in the future. And you're right. I think that the Ohio State defense is not that it shouldn't be feared, but it's not one of those Ohio State defenses that you just go, oh my, how do you score any points on this team? And that's why I think that it's going to be a close game, Mike. I think that Michigan's defense is very good. I mean, we've all written about it and how good their numbers are, but they've certainly allowed yardage. And I think, like Ohio State's defense, though, that they've given up yards, but they have also stopped teams at critical times. I think that's definitely been a hallmark of both defenses this year, and which I think sets us up to be a really, really tough one on defense on Saturday.
The one thing I think Michigan fans worry about, though, is that if the Wolverines have had trouble with anything, it's been on containing on the edge this year against teams with, the fast quarterbacks. Air Force, of course, with the triple option. Everyone has trouble with that. 2 weekends ago when Northwestern came to town with Kane Coulter and Benrick Mark, that was very difficult for the Wolverines to contain on the edge. So one of the keys this week, and it's going to be really interesting to watch, is how do you keep Braxton Miller from getting outside on you?
Oh, absolutely. And the one thing about Braxton Miller, people like to say Braxton Miller and Denard Robinson in the same breath. I think to me the difference is that Braxton is bigger and he's stronger. I mean, I think he's probably, while Denard may be more elusive, I think Braxton is tougher to bring down. And you're right. I mean, that's where they're going to attack the Michigan defense. And without a doubt, Greg Madison knows that. And we're preparing for that. And, and I was going to say one thing about the defense, too, the Ohio State defense, is that when you watch that Wisconsin game, Monte Ball had a lot of rushing yards against this defense. And I think so. They are susceptible. I mean, they can give up yards, but I will say it again. I think that both defenses they've really found a way to stop teams when they need to stop teams, and I think both of them have been very good at that. But I think both teams will get yards. I really do. But will they get the key yards?
Well, on defense, Ohio State, they really are blessed with a lot of talent when you look at the kids that they're going to start Saturday, especially that front seven. But if they do, again, and have an Achilles heel, it's in that pass defense ranked 97th, especially after last Saturday with Devin, and as well as Devin's playing and throwing the ball, with Denard now in that backfield able to run and, who knows, maybe pass. This really adds an extra element to the game and for Ohio State to defend, doesn't it?
It does, and I think it was brilliant that they showed that hand on Saturday, because they didn't show everything. I mean, Brady Hoke said that Al Borges came back from the Northwestern game and drew up 9 plays right away that night, and they added, I think, 6 more. So I imagine that there are 15 more plays they could add, and Ohio State doesn't know what it is. They're going to be guessing this week, and I thought that was brilliant strategy on their part to give the Ohio State defensive staff more to think about this week. And I think that you have to look at this offense now and really wonder, how do you make them one-dimensional? And I think that's going to be very hard to do. And how do you shut down Denard? Because if you do that, if you keep him from getting the running yards, how do you stop Devin? And I think that they've been able to effectively, those 2 previous games with Devin there, they used the pass to set up the run, and I thought that they were able to do that those 2 games. They'll be able to do, I'm not saying they're going to be able to do whatever they want on Saturday. I think that they have so much to offer now. It's going to be hard for Ohio State to focus on one thing. And I think that makes Michigan's offense dangerous on Saturday.
Well, Angelique, looking ahead to this Saturday, the Big Ten has taken a beating this year, especially from the national media, and I suppose most people would say pretty well deserved. Mm-hmm. But even with all of that negativity, I mean, looking online, reading newspapers this week, it is just amazing to me still how much interest there is outside of the Big Ten Beltway in Saturday's game. It's just amazing, isn't it?
It is, and I got to be honest with you, Mike. I got on the Pac-12 conference call this week to speak to Rich Rodriguez since he recruited Denard Robinson, and every week they have the Big Ten conference call, and it's packed. I mean, there are lots of reporters on talking to every coach, and not every coach gets multiple questions, but it's usually pretty busy. And I was on the Pac-12 call, and there were like pockets of silence where nobody's on the call, no one's asking questions, and to me that was eye-opening. I thought, well, okay, maybe the Big Ten's down, but it's not lacking for interest. And yeah, I think what's exciting is that you've got an unbeaten team, one of two unbeatens in the country, playing a team that looks pretty hot right now. And I think that people are interested in this one. I think that the storyline with Ohio State not being able to go to the postseason is intriguing to people nationally. And I think that people understand nationally what Michigan-Ohio State means. I don't think HBO would have done that documentary a few years ago if that wasn't the case. And I think that, do we want to see Nebraska lose to make this game more interesting? Yes, I think so. And I think nationally people would be really excited about that outcome if it sets up a Michigan-Ohio State game that reminds us all of the 10-year war and beyond, that game meant everything because it typically determined a Big Ten championship.
I remember when we talked, you were on the show and we did the Alabama preview, and you said, at the end of the season, I think 8-4 is really a record that is realistic, maybe 9-3, and I think a lot of us said that would be a good season. But when you look at it now, heading into the Ohio State game, if we lose on Saturday, we're 8-4, and
right.
Of course you want to win the game, but 8-4 or 9-3, given how the season has developed, and now here at the end of the season, Devin Gardner really starting to assert himself as the quarterback, and next year that means good things, we think. And the defense has been so much better than anyone anticipated when we were all looking at this in August. So 8-4, 9-3, whatever the record is, when the sun sets on Saturday, I think most of us have to say it's been a pretty good season, hasn't it?
I totally agree, and I thought that this comment I'd heard several times in the last few weeks, that could Michigan have a worse record than last year but be a better team than it was last year when Michigan went 11-2, and I think that's accurate. I think that there are a lot of elements of this team that are better, and I think you're right now. This last month, I think it gives a lot of people thinking that there's a lot of promise for the 2013 season. I think one thing you look at, though, and I don't think the offensive line play was very good this year. I thought it was okay. If Taylor Lewan, the starting left tackle, goes to the NFL, which my hunch is he will, based on all the NFL draft analysts who say he's a first-rounder potentially, and Mel Kiper's got him at number 8 on his big board. He's got a lot of reasons to go to the NFL. If that's the case, they're going to be replacing 4 guys on that offensive line. And I think what we haven't seen, but I think what should be exciting to Michigan fans is that the young guys that they've redshirted, the guys that they have coming up, are awfully good. Every indication I've gotten from people who've seen practice, who work with these guys, is that these kids are good. And that's going to be an interesting area to watch next season. But I think with the emergence of Devin Gardner, I think it's also positive that Shane Morris comes in, and more than likely you redshirt him and get him ready for his career at Michigan as a starter, which I think we can pencil him in. That's the what people think about his talent. But I think next year you look at this last month and think what a nice springboard for them going into the 2013 season.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. There's just a lot to be positive about moving forward. So one last question, Angelique, as we get ready for this weekend. I mentioned that I have very good vibes about the game Saturday down in Columbus. So in closing, your thoughts. Do you think this is going to be a game that Michigan is going to win?
I think I was definitely heading into this season, and even in the last couple of weeks, I was still thinking, this is an Ohio State win. I think Urban's got some focus, as Brady does, on this game. It's in Columbus. What do you know? Denard's not ready. Is that going to make a big difference? But I think what I've seen, and particularly that game against Iowa, I think they have a really good chance of beating this team now, and I'm looking at like a 28-24 kind of score. I'll probably be way wrong, Mike. It'll probably end up being like a 2006 kind of score, a lot of points. And I think Michigan can pull this one out. I think it's a flip the coin kind of game for me. And I know I'm hedging because I just can't tell. The one thing about Ohio State is they've gone on the road and they've they've squeaked games out. They found a way to win games. Michigan State at Wisconsin the other night. And I think that bodes well for Ohio State and all the motivation that they have, that this is their bowl game. But, in so many ways, it's Michigan's bowl game, too. It always is. So I think I could see Michigan winning a close game, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Ohio State win that one either.
Well, all we have to say is Ohio State, Michigan, it really doesn't matter. We know it's going to be a fascinating and entertaining game this week.
It always is, and I'm surprised you went with Ohio State first, mentioning, usually it's Michigan, Ohio State. You went with Ohio State, Michigan.
Yes, I dropped the ball on that one. But Michigan, I still have good vibes this week, Angelique, so looking forward to it as always. And as always, we appreciate you coming on the show, Ohio State Michigan Week. Our guest today has been Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. As always, Angelique, it's been a pleasure, and we look forward to the next time.
My pleasure, and I hope everybody has a safe and happy Thanksgiving, and certainly enjoy the final regular season game.
Thank you very much, Angelique.
Thank you, Mike.
Coming up next, we wrap it up for another week with Wolverine Quick Hits here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits today, let's start with a look at the injuries. At his Monday presser, Coach Hoke said that Fitz Toussaint came through surgery well and was released from the University of Michigan Medical Center yesterday. Brady said he expects Fitz will be back with the team next fall for his senior year. He also said Denard is close to 100% and could start at quarterback this weekend. As Coach Hoke said, it's up in the air. No other injuries of note, so the team is in good overall health for the game on Saturday. Here are some quick facts about the game and our opponent. Michigan has the all-time series lead with 58 wins against 44 losses, and there have been 2 ties. Last year, the Wolverines won in Ann Arbor 40-34. Coach Urban Meyer is in his first year on the job and is 11-0 heading into this week's action. In 11 years as a head coach, he has compiled a record of 114 wins against 23 losses. Last year, Ohio ended the season 6-7, 3-5 in the Big Ten, and 4th in the Leaders Division. They lost to Florida 24-17 in the Gator Bowl. The Buckeyes return 18 starters from last year's team, 7 on offense, 9 on defense, and 2 special teams players. They are banned from postseason play this year, as we all know, and come into the game ranked number 4 in the AP poll. Don't forget to become a member here at GBMW. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up for membership today. Benefits include email reminders when a story is published or a mailbag question is answered. You also need to become a member for full participation on our always interesting message board. As a member here on GBMW, you can also take part in our popular Monday Night Live chat with E-Rock Wolverine, Coach BT, Maze Man, Doc for Blue, World's Wolverine, and our hockey guru Jostmeister, especially now that hockey season is in full swing. The Monday Night Live chat takes place at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so check it out. The show is now available as an Android app, which can be purchased from the Android App Store at Amazon.com. If, however, you are an Apple person, you'll find our app in the Lipson toolbox at the iTunes App Store. If you listen to the show on your Apple device, please take 1 minute to give us a review. It helps more than you would ever know. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your comments. If you'd like to have your Maize and Blue opinion heard, give us a call at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Then leave an audio with your thoughts on the Ohio State game, on the football season, the upcoming basketball season, hockey, recruiting, anything that's on your mind. Just give us your name, tell us where you're calling from, and then give us your 2 cents worth. If you'd rather send us an email, our address is the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. I welcome your thoughts on anything maize and blue. And if you don't have a pen or a pencil handy, I will put the email address and the phone number in our show notes page, so check that out. Thanks again to our guests today, Ohio State beat writer Tim May from the Columbus Dispatch and Michigan beat writer, the angel of the Big House, Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Always great to have Angelique on the show. Kickoff this Saturday is scheduled for just after 12 noon and will be televised on ABC. So here it is. We wait for it all year, and now it's just days away. Michigan versus Ohio State. I would like to take a minute to thank each and every one of you who listen to the show and wish each of you a happy and safe Thanksgiving Day and weekend. Let's hope we have another game for the ages this Saturday, and of course, come home with a great big Michigan victory. Don't forget to join us next Wednesday when we'll be back to recap the season finale down in Columbus. Until then, I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Happy Thanksgiving, take care, and until we meet again, as always, go blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!